My brother poured red wine straight onto my face at his own engagement party. The crowd gasped, then laughed. "You've always been jealous, Claire," he shouted, holding the empty glass like a trophy. I wiped the wine from my cheek, met his eyes, and whispered, "Tomorrow, I'll take everything you love." I'm Claire Anderson, 34, interior designer, small business owner, and if you ask my parents, the responsible child. My older brother David has always been the opposite: charming, impulsive, and addicted to attention. He could lie, fail, and still get applause for trying. I could succeed quietly and somehow still feel invisible. We grew up in Austin, Texas, in a family that treated charisma like currency. Mom adored David's smile. Dad bragged about his confidence. When I graduated top of my class, they said, "That's nice, honey." When David got fired from his third job, they said, "He just hasn't found his passion yet." I was the one who kept things together, organized the bills, helped Dad refinance the house, took care of Mom after her surgery. David drifted from project to project, borrowing money and promising miracles. When he came to me 5 years ago with his big real estate vision, I gave him $20,000, half my savings. He swore he'd pay it back in 6 months. He never did. Now he was the star again. Successful broker, expensive suits, perfect teeth. He'd met Rachel Moore, a kind, soft-spoken art teacher who saw only the version of him that he wanted her to see. They got engaged after 6 months. Everyone said it was a fairy tale. When I received the invitation to the engagement party, I almost didn't go. The last time we'd spoken, he'd brushed off the loan like it was pocket change. "You're doing fine, Claire," he'd said. "Don't make money ruin family." Still, I went for Mom's sake. I even brought a gift, a custom wall piece with their initials intertwined. The venue was exactly what I expected from David, an upscale restaurant with crystal chandeliers and a live jazz band. I walked in and instantly felt like an outsider in my own family. Mom was surrounded by David's friends, laughing too loudly. Dad was bragging about my son, the businessman. Rachel greeted me with a genuine smile, hugging me so tightly I almost forgot how angry I was. For a while, everything went smoothly. Glasses clinked, waiters floated through the room, and David played the charming host. Then, during one of his speeches, he noticed me standing near the bar. "Ah, my dear sister Claire," he announced, voice dripping with theatrical affection. "Couldn't miss this, could you? You've always been my biggest critic." The guests chuckled. I forced a polite smile. "Just here to celebrate, David." "Celebrate?" He grinned, eyes narrowing. "Or take notes on how success looks." The room tensed. Rachel touched his arm, murmuring something, but he shrugged her off. "Come on, sis. You're the designer, maybe you can design yourself a husband next." The laughter this time was louder, crueler. I felt the heat rise to my face. I turned to leave. That's when it happened. He reached for the nearest bottle of red wine, an expensive vintage, and tilted it toward me. The liquid splashed across my hair, my face, my white silk dress. Gasps. Then silence. Then laughter again. Rachel's eyes widened, horrified. "David," she whispered. But he just laughed. "She'll be fine. She needed some color." My hands trembled as I wiped my face, but I didn't cry. I looked at him, straight into his smug, drunken grin, and I smiled. "You always did have terrible taste," I said softly. Then I set my ruined clutch on the table, turned, and walked out. Outside, the night air felt sharp, cleansing. The wine clung to my skin, cold and sticky. A valet hurried toward me with a towel, but I waved him off. My heart was pounding, not from shame but clarity. I'd spent my life being the peacemaker, the quiet one, the sister who let things go. But that night, standing alone under the neon glow of the restaurant sign, something in me finally snapped. I opened my phone and scrolled to a folder I hadn't looked at in years. "David, investment documents." It contained everything: our contract, his signatures, his voice messages about the money, screenshots of his transfers, evidence of every promise he'd broken. And I remembered another secret: the photos I'd seen months ago on social media, him with a woman who wasn't Rachel, Megan, his coworker, the one who helped him plan the engagement. He thought I'd forgotten. He thought humiliation would shut me up. But as I stood there, the wine drying sticky on my face, I whispered to myself, tomorrow, he's going to learn the difference between embarrassment and exposure. The night was quiet except for the faint hum of the jazz band still playing inside. I smiled, steady now. He poured wine on me to feel powerful. I'd end his wedding to remind him who he'd never control again. I didn't sleep that night. The smell of wine clung to my skin no matter how many times I washed it off. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw David's smirk, the crowd's laughter, and Rachel's helpless face frozen between confusion and loyalty. I had always been the one who swallowed humiliation for the sake of peace. But something in me hardened. This time, I wouldn't bury it under forgiveness. At 2 a.m., I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open, the dim glow of the screen painting the room in cold blue light. I opened the old folder labeled David, Investment. Inside were documents I hadn't touched since the last time he promised to pay me back. There it was, a signed contract, dated and notarized, confirming that David had borrowed $20,000 from me with interest. His signature, bold and arrogant, almost made me laugh. He thought he'd never have to honor it. I scrolled through the emails that followed: his excuses, his fake reassurances, his jokes about family discounts. Every word, every lie, stacked like bricks on top of each other. Then I remembered the whispers. 6 months ago, I'd gone to his office for lunch, and his assistant Megan had greeted me with that same too-perfect smile that women use when they're hiding something. Later, a mutual friend mentioned seeing them together at a hotel in Dallas. I dismissed it then, not wanting to be the bitter sister. Now it clicked. I opened social media and typed David Anderson plus Megan into the search bar. Photos appeared instantly: work conferences, business dinners, and one that stopped my heart: a grainy image of the two of them at a rooftop bar, her hand resting on his chest. The timestamp? 2 weeks before his engagement. I didn't need more proof, but I wanted it anyway. Over the next few days, I worked quietly. My job as a designer gave me flexibility, and my silence was my camouflage. I called a private investigator I'd used for a client once, Mr. Quinn, discreet and thorough. I need to confirm if someone is still seeing his mistress, I told him. And I need proof. Name? He asked. David Anderson. He chuckled softly. Family, huh? Unfortunately. By Friday, I had photos crystal clear. David and Megan outside a downtown hotel. Him handing her a small velvet box. Her kissing his cheek. The timestamp. 1 day after his engagement party. Quinn delivered everything neatly in an envelope. I didn't even flinch when I saw them. The pain was gone. All that remained was precision. Saturday morning, I visited Mom and Dad. The minute I walked in, Mom's expression said everything. She was embarrassed for me, not angry at him. Claire, honey, she began carefully. David told us about what happened. You shouldn't have provoked him. I blinked. He poured wine on me, Mom. She sighed, as if I were missing the point. You know how sensitive he gets when people challenge him. You've always had a sharp tongue. There it was, the family pattern, the eternal justification. Did he also tell you about the $20,000 he owes me? I asked. Her expression faltered. Money shouldn't come between siblings. Then maybe respect should, I said quietly. Dad looked up from his newspaper. Just let it go, Claire. He's getting married. Don't make this worse. I smiled bitterly. Worse? Oh, Dad. I haven't even started. They exchanged nervous glances. I stood, kissed Mom's forehead, and said, Don't worry. I'll make sure David never embarrasses me again. The next day, I met Rachel for coffee. I hadn't planned to, but she texted me herself. Can we talk? About the other night. She looked pale when she arrived, eyes red-rimmed but kind. I'm so sorry about what David did, she said softly. He said he was drunk, that it was a stupid joke. I watched her stir her coffee, her hands trembling. Rachel, I said gently, do you really believe that? She hesitated. He can be impulsive, but he loves me. End quote. I looked at her and saw what I used to see when I looked at my family faith trying to survive logic. I wanted to scream, to shake her awake, but I just reached across the table and touched her hand. Rachel, I said quietly, if someone shows you who they are, believe them. She frowned, confused. I smiled softly. You'll understand soon. We hugged before parting. I almost pitied her. Almost. That night, I started putting everything together. Step 1. Prepare the evidence. I created a digital folder labeled, For Rachel, read before the wedding. Inside, I placed the photos, the messages, the receipts, and the contract. On top, a single note. You deserve the truth before you make it permanent. Step 2. Backup. I uploaded a copy to the cloud, another to a flash drive, and one printed version, sealed in an envelope. Step 3. Delivery. Rachel and David's wedding was in 5 days, a massive outdoor ceremony at Barton Creek Resort. 200 guests, full press coverage from a local lifestyle magazine. The perfect stage for the golden boy. I planned to send the email the morning of the wedding, early enough for her to read it before walking down the aisle. I could have exposed him online, sent the photos to everyone, made it viral, but that wasn't what I wanted. I didn't want revenge fueled by chaos. I wanted precision. I wanted him to fall under the weight of his own lies. And I wanted her to walk away with her dignity intact. The next morning, I woke up to a text from David. David. Stay away from the wedding. Mom's still upset. Don't make a scene. Me. Don't worry, I won't make a scene. David. Good. Me. I'll just make history. He didn't respond. I spent the next few days quietly finalizing my plan. The PI sent me one last file, a short video clip from a bar the night before the rehearsal dinner. David and Megan together again. I almost laughed. He wasn't even trying to hide it. Friday night, I printed everything one last time. The stack of paper looked so innocent, but it felt heavier than justice. I placed the folder inside my bag, zipped it shut, and whispered, You wanted a show, David. Let's see how you handle an audience. Then I poured myself a glass of white wine, took a slow sip, and smiled. For once, the taste wasn't bitter. Tomorrow, he'd know what humiliation really felt like. And it wouldn't wash off. My plan wasn't a fit of rage, it was a clock I wound carefully. The objective: make the truth available to the person who needed to see it. Rachel. Give her time to choose, and cut off every route David could use to spin or hide. No viral chaos, no public smear, just a surgical delivery of facts. Step 1. Make the evidence indisputable and uneditable. I took every photo and video the PI sent, exported them in multiple formats, and saved copies in 3 places: an encrypted cloud drive, an external hard drive, and a pair of printed packets. One packet was labeled for Rachel, the other was a contingency copy. Every file had timestamps and location metadata. The video showed what it needed to show: David holding Megan in a hotel doorway, Megan pressing a kiss to his temple, the hotel name visible on the footage. There was no way to dismiss it as photoshopped blur. At the same time, I called my old lawyer brief, professional. I have documents I may need to make public. I want them preserved. She replied, Keep originals intact. Don't alter anything. Send me a copy. Having legal counsel on standby made the whole thing feel steady. If the situation escalated, I would be the actor with control, not a hysterical woman dragged into headlines. Next came the delivery strategy. Email felt safe, but email can be ignored in the chaos of a wedding morning. I wanted Rachel to read the proof before she walked down the aisle, so I designed a two-pronged approach. A burner email with an encrypted download link sent early that morning, plus a physical USB drive discreetly placed where Rachel would find it the bride's dressing table. To get the USB in place without raising alarms, I enlisted a friend who was doing floral work for the ceremony. She was warm, quietly efficient, and the one person most likely to have access to the bridal suite before anyone else. I wrapped the USB in a small, tasteful box with a note on top. For Rachel, please read before saying, "I do." My friend agreed, promising to tuck it onto the bride's vanity before the hair and makeup team arrived. The burner email was short, neutral, and impossible to ignore. Subject line: Before you say, "I do," important information. Body: Rachel, I'm sending you proof because I believe you deserve the truth before you make this commitment. Download the files with this one-time password. Attached was the download link and the one-time password, set to expire after a single use. I scheduled the email to send at 6 a.m., early enough for her to open it, late enough to prevent the files being widely disseminated in advance. I also prepared contingencies. If, for some reason, Rachel didn't check her email or the USB went missing, I had a sealed printed packet addressed to the bride, couriered to the venue with explicit delivery instructions. Leave with the wedding coordinator and mark personal. It was blunt, perhaps extreme, but necessary. I wanted to guarantee that at least one channel would put the truth in her hands before the ceremony began. On top of logistics, I curated my presence. I bought a simple navy dress, understated, but dignified, and reserved a front row seat near the center aisle. I didn't intend to dramatize. The plan required calm clarity, not theatrics. Being visible ensured that if Rachel needed a witness, or if the moment demanded a voice beside hers, I could be there without intruding. 2 hours before the ceremony, I double-checked everything. The PI confirmed no further evidence was necessary. The lawyer confirmed safe custody of the originals. The florist texted, "USB on vanity. She'll find it." I sat in my car a few blocks away, phone off, the printed packet on my lap. The clock read 5:58. My breath was steady. For a moment, I thought about my mother's weary words, "Don't make a scene." And I reminded myself, this isn't making a scene, this is putting truth where it belongs. I took one last look at the folder, slid it into my bag, and walked toward the venue. The plan was set. The rest would be timing and resolve. At exactly 6 a.m., the email went out. The message disappeared from my outbox in one click, vanishing into the quiet stillness of dawn. The USB was already in place, the printed packet en route. There was nothing left to adjust. My work was done. Now the truth had to do the rest. By 8 a.m., I was sitting in my car outside the resort, watching a parade of white vans unload floral arrangements, speakers, champagne crates, and linen. It was a perfect Texas morning, clear sky, gold light, a day made for photographs, the kind of day my brother believed was built just for him. I thought of Rachel, somewhere inside, surrounded by makeup artists and bridesmaids, maybe sipping coffee while the first song of her wedding playlist played softly in the background. I pictured her glancing at her phone, seeing the email, reading the subject line. Maybe her hand would shake a little. Maybe she'd think it was spam, and then she'd open it. By 9:30, the wedding photographer's SUV arrived. My phone buzzed once. A text from my florist friend. She saw the box. Did she open it? I typed. Yes. She looked pale. Her maid of honor closed the door. No one else saw. I let out a slow breath. I hadn't realized I was holding. The line had landed. Whatever came next was no longer mine to control. At 10:15, I walked toward the venue gates. Guests were already gathering, men in suits, women in pastel dresses, the polite perfume of wealth and performance filling the air. I blended in easily. No one questioned the woman in navy with calm eyes and a composed smile. Inside the courtyard, everything was arranged with David's signature arrogance: an arch of imported roses, a champagne tower glinting under the sun, and a string quartet rehearsing the wedding march. He was talking animatedly with the wedding planner, flashing that same showman grin that had always fooled people. But when he noticed me, his expression flickered. He approached, lowering his voice. "You weren't invited." "I know," I said evenly. "Neither was the truth. But here we are." And he gave a humorless laugh. "You really can't stand to see me happy, can you?" "I can stand to see you honest," I said. "But I guess that's asking too much." His jaw tightened. "Whatever game you're playing, drop it. Rachel doesn't need your poison today." I smiled faintly. "She's already read it." The color drained from his face. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. Then, without another word, he turned sharply and strode toward the bridal suite. I followed him with my eyes, the way one watches a fuse burn toward the charge. 15 minutes later, the atmosphere shifted. The musicians stopped mid-note. The bridesmaids came down from the suite whispering. Rachel's mother appeared near the arch, pale and flustered. Guests began to murmur. Then, the doors to the suite swung open. Rachel emerged not in tears, not trembling, but composed. Her makeup perfect, her hands steady. The sunlight caught the diamond ring on her finger, and for a moment, everything looked normal. Until she walked straight past the aisle, holding something small in her hand, a USB drive. David followed, his face tight, jaw locked, trying to whisper explanations that only made her walk faster. She stopped in the middle of the courtyard. The chatter died instantly. Every head turned toward her. Rachel looked at the guests, then at my brother. "This wedding," she said clearly, "is not happening." Gasps rippled through the crowd. David reached for her arm. "Rachel, don't." She pulled back, her voice sharp as glass. "Don't what? Tell the truth?" "You cheated on me, David? You lied about who you were, about your business, even about your debts." Her words landed like thunder. Cameras that were meant to record a fairy tale now captured a confession. David stammered, glancing desperately at our parents. "Claire did this. She—" Rachel turned toward me. Our eyes met. She nodded once gratitude, quiet and fierce. Then she faced him again. "No, David. You did this. She just gave me the facts." For a heartbeat, the world seemed frozen. Then Rachel slid the ring off her finger, placed it in his hand, and said softly, "I hope one day you learn the difference between love and ownership." And just like that, she walked out past the arch, the stunned guests, the broken fantasy. I didn't move. I didn't need to. The truth had done its work. David turned toward me, red-faced, trembling. "You ruined me," he hissed. "No," I said, standing. "You ruined yourself. I just gave the audience front row seats." I picked up my clutch and walked away, the string quartet restarting behind me, playing something that sounded almost like triumph. As I stepped into the sunlight, I whispered to myself. He poured wine on my face to humiliate me. I poured the truth on his life to free myself. How? And for the first time in years, the air around me felt light. The moment Rachel walked away, the courtyard exploded. Gasps turned to whispers, whispers to questions, questions to chaos. The string quartet stopped again mid-song. Half the guests stood frozen, the other half already fumbling for their phones. The photographer lowered his camera slowly, like someone realizing he was standing in the middle of a train wreck. David just stood there, staring at the space where Rachel had been seconds before. The engagement ring still rested in his palm, glinting under the sun, the symbol of everything he'd built on lies. His hand trembled. Mom rushed toward him, her voice breaking. "David, honey, what happened?" He looked at her, eyes wild. "She's lying. Claire set me up. She's been obsessed with ruining me." I didn't say a word. There was no need. Every face around us told the same story. They didn't believe him. Dad stepped in next, always the peacemaker, his voice low but stern. Son, did you do what she said? David opened his mouth, then closed it. He glanced around, caught sight of a few guests holding up phones recording him, and his voice came out cracked. It's not what it looks like. Then what is it? I asked quietly, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. Hay spun toward me, eyes blazing. You think you're some kind of hero, huh? You couldn't stand that I finally had something better than you. I don't need to stand above you, I said, stepping forward. I just needed to stop standing under you. The crowd murmured. Someone whispered. She warned him. Someone else muttered. I saw her email earlier. The bride was crying in the room. David's face flushed crimson. You ruined everything. You told the truth, I interrupted. And the truth ruins only lies. Lass. For a moment, all he could do was glare at me, jaw trembling. Then he snapped. He lunged toward me, grabbing my wrist hard enough to bruise. You're going to regret this, he hissed. Before I could react, two groomsmen, his college friends, stepped between us. Hey man, stop, not here. Get your hands off her, one said sharply. This isn't helping. He let go, chest heaving, breathing in shallow bursts. Cameras caught everything, the anger, the desperation, the unraveling. Mom's voice came out small, brittle. David, please, people are watching. He turned on her. I don't care, he shouted, gesturing toward me. She's been jealous since we were kids, Mom. She never supported me. I met his eyes, calm. No, David. I supported you more than anyone else. I paid for your start. I kept your secrets. I believed you could be better. You just proved me wrong. That silenced him. Then, from the crowd, someone said quietly, check social media. Oh. A wave of motion rippled through the guests as phones came out again. I hadn't posted anything, but someone had. A screenshot of Rachel's post was spreading fast. A photo of the USB drive next to her wedding bouquet with a caption that read, sometimes, the truth comes dressed as heartbreak. Thank you for setting me free before it was too late. Underneath it, hundreds of comments flooded in sympathy for Rachel, fury at David, disbelief from his colleagues. The image was already trending locally. His perfect day was now a viral scandal. David saw the phones, the screens, the pity in every pair of eyes, and something in him broke. He sank onto the edge of a chair, hands clutching his head. She posted it, he whispered. Oh God, she posted it. Mom sank down beside him, still trying to salvage dignity. It'll blow over, she said weakly. People forget. No, I said, my voice steady. Not this time. I march. Because I'd already made sure it wouldn't. 2 nights before the wedding, I'd sent the same package photos, receipts, and contract copies to David's business partners. No captions, no accusations, just facts. The kind of facts that made lawyers panic and investors pull away. By the time the first video from the wedding hit the internet, his company's email servers were already buzzing with damage control messages. He looked up at me, realization dawning. You destroyed my life. No, I said quietly. I stopped you from destroying someone else's. Security finally stepped in, escorting him inside as the guests dispersed awkwardly. Some avoided my gaze, others nodded with a kind of quiet respect. I didn't bask in it. I wasn't proud. I just felt empty. Rachel's maid of honor found me near the garden exit. She pressed a folded note into my hand. From her, she said simply, then left. Inside, Rachel's handwriting delicate but firm. Claire, thank you for your courage. I thought I was marrying a man who respected women. You proved he only respected appearances. You didn't ruin my wedding. You saved my life. I folded the note carefully, slipped it into my clutch, and walked to my car without looking back. The air smelled of champagne and roses. but underneath there was the sharp tang of truth, raw, cleansing, final. Driving home, I didn't feel victorious. I felt free. For years, I'd been the sister who let things go. The one who cleaned up his messes, who played quiet, who chose peace over justice. That version of me had died the moment the wine hit my skin. Now, all that remained was someone who could finally look in the mirror without guilt. I parked my car, rolled down the window, and took one deep breath. In the distance, I could almost hear the faint echo of David's voice shouting my name, still trying to rewrite the story. But his words no longer carried weight, because the story was no longer his. It was mine. By that evening, the story was everywhere. Local news blogs ran headlines like "Wedding Ends in Scandal," "Groom Exposed for Infidelity Mid-Ceremony." The footage from guests' phones spread across TikTok, stitched with captions ranging from sympathy to disbelief. On LinkedIn, someone had already posted a think piece titled, "What Leadership Integrity Really Means: Lessons from the Anderson Wedding." David's name trended for all the wrong reasons. Within 48 hours, 2 of his biggest clients withdrew their contracts. One even filed a complaint about dishonest conduct and misrepresentation. His company's website went down for maintenance, and his once flashy Instagram page vanished overnight. The golden boy had gone silent. I didn't post, didn't comment, didn't even watch the videos. I didn't have to. The world was already doing my work for me. Mom called first, voice trembling. "Claire, you have to fix this." End of crate. I stared out the window, coffee growing cold in my hand. "Fix what, Mom?" "He's falling apart, he's drinking, he won't eat, he says you hate him." "I don't hate him," I said calmly. "I just stopped protecting him." There was a long pause. Then, in a voice small and broken, she said, "You sound like your father." For once, I took it as a compliment. Dad called next. His tone was different, measured, almost weary. "Your brother made his bed," he said. "But this is a hard way to learn." "Hemen. He humiliated me in front of 50 people, Dad," I said quietly. "This was the only language he understands." He sighed. "Sometimes destruction looks like justice from another angle." "Then maybe justice was overdue," I said. 3 days later, there was a knock on my door. I opened it to find David standing there disheveled, pale, and stripped of his arrogance. The man who once strutted through life now looked like a ghost wearing his own face. "Can I come in?" he asked hoarsely. I stepped aside. He walked in slowly, scanning the apartment as if seeing it for the first time. The silence between us felt heavy, but not hostile, just honest. Finally, he said, "You destroyed me." "No," I replied, calm. "You built your life on lies. I just took the curtains down." He let out a sharp breath, shaking his head. "You think you're so righteous, don't you? That you did this for Rachel?" "I didn't do it for Rachel," I said. "I did it for me." That caught him off guard. He blinked, confused. "For you?" "You poured wine on my face in front of strangers and laughed," I said softly. "You've disrespected me for years, treated me like your cleanup crew. I finally decided to stop being part of your illusion." He sat down, face in his hands. I thought if I looked strong, everyone would believe I was." "That's not strength, David," I said. "That's fear in a tuxedo." For a long while, neither of us spoke. He rubbed his eyes, his voice breaking. "Rachel won't talk to me. My business partners dropped me. I might lose the house." "I know. You don't care?" "I care that you finally have to face yourself," I said. "That's the only way people like you ever change." He looked up, eyes glistening. "Do you hate me?" "No," I said honestly. "I just don't pity you anymore." He stood, straightened his wrinkled shirt, and walked toward the door. But before leaving, he turned back. "You always were the strong one," he said quietly. "I just never realized it until you stopped protecting me." When the door closed behind him, I sank into the couch, letting the stillness settle. I wasn't proud. I wasn't vindicated. I was simply done. A week later, I received a small envelope in the mail. No return address, just my name in David's handwriting. Inside was a cashier's check for $20,000, the exact amount he owed me, with a note written on the back of the receipt. You were right. It was never about money. It was about respect. I stared at the paper for a long time, then smiled quietly, not triumphantly. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it arrives folded neatly, with an apology you never expected to receive. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine, not red, not bitter, but white, crisp, and clean. I raised it to the reflection in the window and whispered, "To endings and the peace that follows." The city lights blinked back, like applause. Weeks passed. The noise faded, the headlines cooled, and the world moved on as it always does. But for my family, nothing was quite the same. Mom stopped hosting dinners. She no longer mentioned David's name with pride, nor mine with comparison. The house that used to echo with her laughter now carried only the quiet hum of regret. When I visited one Sunday, she seemed smaller, somehow less sure of the stories she'd spent years telling herself. "I should have stopped him," she said softly, stirring her tea. "You couldn't," I replied. "You believed him." "We all did." She looked up, eyes damp. "You must hate me for defending him." "I don't," I said. "But I hope you see me now not as the troublemaker, not as the backup child, just as your daughter who finally drew a line." That made her cry. She reached across the table, took my hand, and whispered, "You were right, Claire. He needed consequences. We both did. It wasn't forgiveness. It was understanding. And that was enough." David stayed quiet for a long time. His company folded within a month. Rumor had it that he'd sold his car, moved into a smaller apartment, and was doing freelance brokerage work just to stay afloat. The local press called him the fallen prodigy, a phrase that would have made him laugh once. Now, it probably felt like a scar. One afternoon, I got another letter from him. Not handwritten this time, but typed simple, clear, sober. "I don't expect you to reply, but I wanted you to know I'm trying. I got a steady job. No shortcuts, no tricks. I've been going to therapy. It's uncomfortable, but honest. You were right about me, Claire. About everything. You said truth ruins only lies. Turns out, it rebuilds people too, just slower." I didn't cry. I smiled. For the first time in years, I believed him. I didn't write back, but I sent him something instead, a small card that read, "Keep going. The work isn't over, but it's worth it." Oh. By spring, Rachel reached out. I found her email buried under a pile of client correspondence. She'd moved to Oregon, opened a small art studio, and was teaching again. Her message was brief. "I've rebuilt my piece by piece. Thank you for giving me the truth, even when it hurt. I hope life has been kind to you." Attached was a photo. A painting of a woman standing in the rain, wine, red streaks running down her face, but she was smiling, calm, unbroken. She'd titled it, "Purified." I printed it and hung it in my studio. My own life became quieter. No drama, no noise, no walking on eggshells around people who mistook cruelty for strength. My business grew slowly but steadily. Clients who once dismissed me as the quiet Anderson sibling now introduced me as the Claire who designs with honesty. Oh, some nights, when I stayed late sketching designs, I'd glance at the reflection in the window, the same reflection that had watched me walk away from that wedding, and realize how much lighter it looked. No bitterness, no triumph, just peace. It's strange how justice doesn't look like revenge when you finally get it. It looks like silence. It looks like clarity. It looks like not needing to explain yourself anymore. One evening, Mom called. "Your brother's visiting next weekend," she said hesitantly. "Would you come too?" I paused, then I smiled. "Yes, Mom. I think it's time." Maybe we'd never be the same family again, but maybe we'd be an honest one this time. The night before the visit, I poured myself a glass of white wine, the same kind I'd raised after the wedding. I set it on the windowsill, let the city lights paint it gold, and whispered. He poured wine on my face to humiliate me. But I turned that stain into a mirror. Now, every time he sees his reflection, he'll remember who cleaned it. Then I drank not in victory, but in peace. A year later, the world had forgotten the scandal, but I hadn't. Not because it haunted me, but because it taught me everything I didn't know I needed. I learned that silence isn't always peace. Sometimes it's surrender. For years, I stayed quiet to keep my family comfortable, to keep my brother's ego intact, to keep the illusion that love meant tolerance. But real peace doesn't come from avoiding storms. It comes from walking straight through them and coming out clean. David changed, or at least, he was trying. Mom said he visited often, helped around the house, talked less, listened more. Therapy had softened him. He wasn't the golden boy anymore, just a man finally facing himself without applause. The last time we met, there was no tension, no guilt. He thanked me. Not for what I did, but for finally doing what no one else would. You freed me, in the worst way possible, he said with a sad laugh. I smiled. Freedom always hurts at first. He nodded. It's worth it though. We didn't need to say more. Some forgiveness lives in silence. Rachel's painting still hangs in my studio, a reminder that truth, no matter how messy, always cleans more than it destroys. My clients sometimes ask about it. I tell them, it's a story about spilled wine. They laugh, thinking it's a joke, but I know it's not. Sometimes, I run my fingers over the dried brushstrokes, remembering that night, the cold splash, the gasps, the humiliation, and then I remember what came after. The strength, the clarity, the quiet freedom that followed. Justice doesn't always roar, sometimes it whispers, enough. And, if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. People who humiliate others think they hold the power, but all they're doing is handing you the match that will light your transformation. David thought pouring wine on me would make me small. Instead, it washed away the last trace of fear I had. Now, I build my life like I build my designs. Strong foundations, clean lines, nothing hidden behind the walls. Because the truth, once it's out, doesn't just ruin lies. It rebuilds you. He poured wine on my face to shame me, but I poured truth on his world and found peace in mine.